My name is Alice Ragan Wood from Gastonia, North Carolina. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Welcome to Point of Rock Studios. On behalf of 90 over 90, I'm Rob Sumner. It's my great pleasure to introduce Alice Ragan Wood. Ms. Wood is born and raised in Gaston County and spent much of her adult life in towns all across North Carolina. She was born on May 30th, 1923. She is retired from a 40-year career as an elementary school teacher and has lived in Gaston County since 1990. She was married to the late David Wood for 43 years, and together they raised one son, David. She's a proud grandmother of 3 and great-grandmother of 3. Welcome to 90 over 90, Ms. Wood. All right, you're going to have to speak up so we can get you. All right, very good. Let's just dive right into it. You were born in Gaston County. Tell us where you were born and where you spent your early years and what part of Gaston County.
I was born in the New Hope area of Gaston County and lived there until I was 9 years old.
Now, what was your family? Who was in your family?
I have a sister, Helen Ragan Mando, a brother who is deceased, Daniel Carlisle Ragan, and myself.
All right. And you lived there with your mom and dad?
Lived there until his death. He was with us until I was 5 years old.
Okay, and
he died in 1928.
All right. Were your brother and sister younger than you?
They're younger. I am the oldest of the 3 children.
And I believe you told me before we started the interview that you lived on a farm, or that you're in New Hope area?
Farm next to New Hope Presbyterian Church.
And what was that like? What kind of farm was it?
Well, I know that it was a tenant farm. We had tenants living on the place and grew cotton. But my father and an uncle had a lumber company called Home Lumber Company that was in Gastonia. So he worked there until his death.
How did he die?
He died with appendicitis.
Do you remember that day?
He was in the hospital, in the old city hospital. And he was sick, I guess, a week before his death. I do remember going with him to the doctor's office where he was treated for an upset stomach.
And how did you learn that he had died? Who told you?
My aunt came from in Gastonia down to the farm to tell us at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Do you remember that day pretty closely?
Oh, I remember that.
What did you do?
Well, we were in bed, of course, but I remember my mother having a hard time with it when she was told. That's what I remember.
That made an impression on you?
That made an impression.
So.
And I still remember it, yes.
What did you and your family do after your dad died? How did you run the farm?
After my dad died, now he really didn't farm.
He owned the land?
It was the land, yes, and had a tenant farmer there. And we stayed there, as I said, until I was 9 years old. My mother's people, who lived on down the New Hope Road where Stowe Botanical Garden is now, this was their farm. It was a dairy farm, and of course they wanted us to come live with them when this happened. And my mother did not want to do that.
Why not?
We stayed. Well, I don't really know. Except I guess she wanted to live like she had lived the 6 years with my father. Out
but
of the home place.
Did she relent? And did y'all move down there?
No, we did not move down there. No, we stayed there.
What do you remember about growing up on the farm? Did you have obligations? Did you help?
No.
You didn't.
No,
you didn't, or you just played like a kid?
I just remember playing.
You do.
And I remember that there was a buggy in the garage, And Dan and I would pull that buggy out and roll it around in the yard. I can remember that. And playing games that I don't think children play now very much.
Like what?
We played stealing rocks and kick the can. And we really played with the children who lived on the tenant farm with us.
Now, so your mother, she was a mother and kind of a housekeeper, or what did she do?
That's what she was, yes. She was very young when this happened.
Mm-hmm.
She was 26 when my father died.
Did she ever remarry?
And, she did not remarry until all three of us were through college and married. And she did marry and only lived 3 weeks and died with the first heart attack.
Well, that's an interesting story. Mm-hmm. Did you move from the farm at some point?
At 9, when I was 9 years old, we moved from the farm to what was known then as Love Heights, which is out on Kings Mountain Highway near Myrtle School Road.
And why did you move?
We lost the farm.
Because of
the death of my father, and of course the Depression came about that time.
So this would have been in the around 1930?
28, early 30s when we left.
And do you remember wanting to go or not wanting, or have any?
No, no, at that age I didn't.
Were you in elementary school at that time?
Yes.
And where did you go to school?
And then, well, I started to school down at New Hope in a 2-room schoolhouse. And at that time, New Hope only had 6 months schooling.
Why is that?
That's just the way it was then.
Now,
and then you had to pay to go to subscription school, and we went to Belmont.
Was that the subscription school?
And that was called subscription school because you had to pay. The family had to pay for you to go to Belmont.
Now, a 2-room schoolhouse, does that mean? I guess that tells me that you had kids that weren't your age in that schoolroom.
Yes, I think it was 1 through 3 grades in that 2-room, and then, as I said, at the end of the 6 months, we went to Belmont. Some did, those who wanted to pay the subscription.
And your mother obviously wanted to pay the subscription. Was she strong on education? Did she believe that was important?
She had gone to Linwood College, did not finish, but got married at 20. And then she was 26 when my father died, and was left with 3 children.
So she knew what hard times were like.
So she knew what it was like. So she did stress that we finished college.
Well, were you a good student?
Could have been better. Couldn't we all?
That is true. Go ahead. Now, when you got to Belmont, you were living on the Kings Mountain side of Gastonia?
When I went to Belmont, I lived at New Hope, the first 3 grades.
All right, and then you moved to
Love
Heights.
And then when I was 9, we moved to Love Heights.
And you attended?
And we attended Myrtle School. And then I taught what my first job was at Myrtle School.
What was that?
Teaching.
Oh, your first job as a teacher.
Mm-hmm. I went to the same school where I...
Did you have to work growing up outside? Did you have to have jobs, or were you allowed to be a kid, or?
I was allowed to be
a kid. How about your brother and sister?
Same thing. Now, we got jobs when we were 16.
And where did you work first? Do you remember anything about your first job?
The first job was at Woolworth's.
In downtown Gastonia?
On a Saturday in downtown Gastonia.
And that, for those that don't know, that's an old-timey dime store, is that right?
Right.
5 and 10, they called them. And
right.
What did you do?
I sold toys, my first job. And it was Christmas, and you know how busy it must have been then because we didn't have Toys R Us.
Right.
And other toy stores.
Do you remember
So I
what
remember how busy it was.
Do you remember what they paid you an hour?
I remember that it was $1, maybe 67 cents or something like that.
And was that your money, or did you have to?
Oh, that was my money.
It was?
Yeah. We were helped by both sides of the family.
I see.
You know.
Right. And did you present any special discipline problems for your mother, or would you consider yourself a good girl? Were you out all hours of the night?
No, I think we were all three good.
You do?
I do.
And why is that?
You didn't have the things that you have today, I guess,
Well,
to get you in trouble.
uh-huh.
Don't
Did you have a curfew? Do you recall?
No, we had good friends. I'll add that. We did have good friends, and seems like if one had to be in at a certain time, the other one did too.
Uh-huh. So you made good choices with
Yeah.
regard to your friends.
We all three did.
Who were some of
Good
your friends
friends.
growing up? Do you remember some of those?
Lucille Bradford was my very best friend. Ray Blanton, Vivian Clemmer, Martha Caldwell, Martha Stevens now, Martha Caldwell.
And so,
Those were the best. And
go ahead, I'm sorry.
we were all from families that did have curfews, even though I didn't have a father. I guess my mother trusted us to know when to come in.
Did you was your father, before he died, was he somebody that was a big part of raising you, or did he mainly just work and come home, or do you
Well,
remember?
at 5 years old, it's hard to. I know he worked and came home.
Mm-hmm. But your memory of
But,
him is kind of
No,
dim.
I just remember going with him to the doctor. I remember he would come home from work. Dan and I would hide, and he would come to find us.
Which he
That's
always
about
did,
it.
I assume.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
And when you got in high school, where did you go to high school? Gastonia High School?
Gastonia High School.
You went to Gastonia High School, which was later Ashley High School.
Mhm.
Was Frank L. Ashley the principal?
Yes, he was.
And you graduated in
1940.
All right. And what were your plans after that?
Well, my plans while I was in high school were to go to Presbyterian Hospital and be a nurse.
To train there?
To train there.
Was that in Charlotte?
Then that was in Charlotte, yes. And I had a cousin who was going to Appalachian. She had gone 2 years to Belmont, or Sacred Heart it was then.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to be 18 before you could go in training for nurse. So I decided to go 1 year to Appalachian with her while I waited for my 18th birthday. And I liked it so much that I continued to go there.
Now, Appalachian at that time was kind of known as
Appalachian
Teachers College.
State Teachers College,
Right.
yes.
So if you went school there, you're one of I guess many possibilities was to be a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I assume, of course, Appalachian is a huge university now. I'm sure it was much
Yeah.
smaller then.
Oh, yes.
And is it still located in Boone at that time?
Still at Boone. I think we only had about 1,000 students if you compare it.
To today.
Yeah.
Many times
Yeah.
then.
Uh-huh.
Now, war had broken out in Europe, but had not made it to the United States then. Do you remember, were you in college when Japanese attacked?
I was in 1941.
Do you have any particular
Yes.
memory of that day or that
Yes,
time?
it was open house in the boys' dormitory.
Which means what?
And that meant that we were visiting the boys' dormitory, and it was, of course, December the 7th, and it was a warm day there, and all the windows were open and the leaves blowing in. I remember the leaves in the hall, and I thought, now, why didn't they clean this dormitory? And so everybody had their radios on, listening. Of course, we already knew that they had attacked. And
What did I assume it? You kept right on in college, is that right?
Oh, yes, I did. But now we were without any, we didn't have any men
They all left?
in our graduating class because they all had gone to war.
So essentially, at that point in time, all the men left and it became a women's school?
Almost. It wasn't called that, but I think we had one man in our class, and he was married with 7 children. So he was not called.
I suppose not. You graduated and you went immediately into teaching?
1944. And so that fall is when I started.
Where was your first job?
At Myrtle School, where I had gone to school. And I had the same principal, W.R. Ryan, and he had been a neighbor of ours when we lived in Love Heights.
So he hired you?
So he hired me.
And what did you make a year? Do you remember?
$97 a month.
$97
I
a
figured
month?
The check was $97.
After taxes?
Uh-huh. And at that time, we were not on Social Security.
So
Teachers
were you living by yourself? Or did you move back in with your mom?
Oh, I was back with Mom. Mm-hmm.
And when now at some point you got married. Tell me when that began to happen.
I got married in 1944. 1946.
And how did you meet Mr. Wood?
We had been in high school together. He was a class ahead of me. In my first year teaching, he came home from the Navy. He was a Navy pilot. And he came home right much on leave. So we first started dating the Christmas of 44, my first year teaching. And he was home 3 days. And we dated the 3 nights.
What do you like about him?
It was somewhere to go at that time because no one was there to date. But I did have
Did he call
a
you?
boyfriend, yes, that I had gone with. I met at Appalachian.
Uh-huh.
And
Did you dump him?
eventually.
I did.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
But I dated Dave at Christmas of 44. And then he was home off and on in 45 on leave. And then he went to Guam that summer of 45. And he was to be stationed on the Antietam when he got to Guam. But just after he got there, the war ended.
The war in the Pacific, we dropped the
Mhm.
bombs, I guess.
Mhm.
Is that what
Yeah.
you remember? I
Mhm.
guess
I remember
that was a
that.
happy day for
Yeah.
you.
Except I didn't have very much feeling for him at that time.
You didn't?
Except I had no. But then he was home from July until Christmas of 45. He ferried planes from Norfolk to Kansas a lot. And somehow the weather would be bad, and he was home more than he would have been.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they flew to Spartanburg, and that's where the plane was left when he would come home and wait for the weather to clear up.
So that's how you got to know him better.
Yeah.
And you eventually got married in 46, you said.
Mhm. August.
What did he do? Did he stay in the Navy for a
Now
while?
Now he had gone to North Carolina State and was in his junior year when he went in the Navy. So he started working for Gray Mill and tried that a while, and he did not do what he had expected to do.
Mm-hmm.
So he decided to go back to school.
But let me ask you, your memories of during the 40s and the war years and after, your memories of Gastonia, I guess it was thought of as a textile town then, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And was downtown very busy? How was it different than it is now?
In that the stores were there then, and now they're out at Franklin Square or the mall or somewhere else, and it was
Right.
very busy. because that's where you went for your shopping.
And I guess they,
I just remember walking, on the sidewalk, seeing people speaking, and it was a busy place.
that's where you went. That's where you went to shop. That's where you went to meet people.
That's right.
And that's where people were, I guess,
You
on
go to
Saturdays.
Go to Sweetland's for a Coke, or to Kennedy's drugstore. What else was up there? I can't remember.
Right.
Little stores we'd go in and out of.
And that all, of course, began to change. Now you moved. You got married, and you left Gastonia. You didn't?
Not then, no.
At some
See, he
point.
went back to school. We first lived with his parents. We had an apartment and lived with his parents. And then he went back to school. And I went back to my mother's and stayed until he finished the 2 years. He would come home every week.
Even though you were married.
Even though I was married.
Uh-huh.
But I had a son. We were married August the 3rd, 1946, and David was born July the 11th.
Almost a year later.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't waste any time
Didn't
starting a
waste
family.
any time.
And so you were raising the son by yourself. Were you still teaching?
Oh, yes.
And living with your mom, and he
Mhm.
was getting his education. And then when he got out, you did what?
His first job was with Burlington, and we moved to Burlington, North Carolina, where he worked 6 years. And then we went to visit his brother, who was with Kim Strand in Pensacola, Florida. And that week, his brother talked him into going to work for Kim Strand. So the week we were there, and it was the 4th of July week because the mills or textile mills used to close.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the week we were down there. And let's see.
He talked him into working.
And he talked him into going out to Kim Strand, so he applied for a job and got it. So I went and applied for a job to teach. And we both got jobs in a week and went and found a house, went back to Burlington, and in 3 weeks moved to Pensacola, Florida.
Oh, when he would change jobs to different towns, you would go and, I guess,
Yes,
teach.
Teach. Mm-hmm.
And that's how you built around 40 years in the elementary business.
39, yeah.
39 years.
Yeah. 39 years. And
Not all of which was in North Carolina
oh
either.
no, I taught in Pensacola twice because we left Pensacola, moved to Charlotte, where I taught at Lansdowne School. Then we were transferred back to Pensacola, where I taught, and then we were transferred back to Charlotte. And I taught in the same school, both times in Charlotte.
When did Mr. Wood die?
He didn't die until after he had retired.
Okay.
We lived in Charlotte twice, Pensacola, Florida twice, and then we retired in Roxborough, North Carolina.
All right. And I believe I said at the introduction that you moved back here around 1990, and you were single at that time.
That's right.
And you've been here
That was
retired since.
almost 25 years.
Does it seem
We'll
like
be at
25
Easter.
years?
It has gone fast.
It has.
Yes, it has.
I mean, you still had a lot of friends here at the time, I take it.
At that time, but this time, I still have new friends. Of course, Wilson was an old friend.
Yes. You knew
But
him. You
I
knew
knew
Wilson.
him before.
You trusted him, I take it.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for taking the time this afternoon and to come down and help and participate in this project. And thank you for talking about what your early life and all the things that you did and experienced. And I want to let you know how much I appreciate it and how much how important it was to me. We will see you on the internet.
Thank you, Rob, and I've enjoyed it.
Thank you.